Hello, Unicorns. Welcome to another video. And today you get to see my face, but also a face of a really good colleague and friend who is a great writer for comics. His name is George. George, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is George McHale, and I'm the writer of Resilient out from Absolute Comics.
So we have been working on a couple of graphic novels together, and the first one we're going to talk about is called Resilient, and we will cover everything regarding the story, character building, the process of writing the comic.
So Mina, you have contributed a new cover. It's a Kickstarter exclusive for my book, Resilient, and it just turned out dynamite. I'm really excited about the work that you've done here.
Yeah, it was actually one of my best pieces yet because it was so like sensual in a way, but also very artsy.
I had an artist friend look at it and he said that may be the best drawn foot he's ever seen.
References, kids, just use references.
I'd like to kind of go into the Resilient book a little bit more. So as you know, it's about a woman. She's a judo teacher, and she loses both her arms in like a tragic accident, and she gets like these like robotic arms, and she starts like just kicking butt. She has to like rescue her boyfriend who's taken captive by these gangsters. And so it's a lot of fun. She's got these like katanas and robot arms. The arms are controlled by her glasses, and she does like eye movements in them. And so your cover takes place before she loses the arms, when she's just the judo teacher, which is still pretty awesome. But kind of deeper than that, I wanted to write a book about someone going through like a personal injury. And while I haven't lost my arms, obviously, I did break my back. I had heart surgery when I was 15, and I was in the hospital for weeks on end. And so I wanted to talk about those topics. And then also the couple in the book, Jolanda, who's named after my wife actually, and her husband Colin are trying to have a baby, and they're having a hard time with that. And it talks about a couple kind of sticking with each other, kind of no matter what, and the bond between a husband and wife. So I wanted to talk about all these different sort of subjects, and then also have it kind of in like this action movie type setting where there's these gangsters who have taken her husband and she has to go rescue them. And it's a really fun book. It's out through Absolute Comics right now, and you can order it in Previews Magazine, or you can go on Kickstarter and pick up exclusive covers, including yours.
It was really great for me to draw the cover, but there's one thing that I always failed at as an artist, and that's the writing part. So how did you get the inspiration for the characters? Well, we know about the trauma of like physical trauma and emotional trauma, but was there anything else that influenced this story? How do you manage to turn your emotions into a text, into a consistent timeline, because that's the part that I always lacked. So I want to know more behind that process.
Sure. Well, when I'm sitting down to write a book, I do a lot of planning, right? I'll buy like one of those big poster boards, and then I'll get like little Post-it notes, and I'll map out like a character's journey, both kind of physically, like the plot, what are they doing, where are they going, but then also like a character arc, like their emotional journey and how they're feeling as they go through this process. And when you're thinking in that way, I always try and write from like real life, real situations that I've been in, conversations that I've had, or funny things that people have said, and I'll try and take those and fit them into my story where it's appropriate. So kind of having those kind of nuggets in your head of like, okay, I want to use this sometime. And I keep a list of notes on my phone. If someone says something funny and we're at a bar, I'll just like whip out my phone and like type it down. And like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going to use that later. So it's always kind of like thinking about your writing and then kind of implementing those kind of true life or funny situations into your writing when it's appropriate, when it makes sense for the characters.
So in this planning process, do you go character by character, or do you just do the timeline? Do you plan your characters?
I do plan my characters. So I plan my the plot is kind of one thing. It's all encompassing, all the characters, but then I go through each character. How are they feeling, and how are they reacting to these situations?
Right.
For resilience, it's a married couple, right? And so it's a lot of their relationship and kind of relating to each other, and showing up for each other. They're having trouble conceiving, and so they're working through these emotions together, right? And it can be a very stressful and hard situation when you want to have a baby and you can't, or it's taking a long time to happen, and they're going through IVF treatments and things like this, where it costs like tens of thousands of dollars to do these things. So it's a lot of pressure to make things work. And then on the other side, after Jolanda has like her arms blown off, she doesn't get those robot arms that she's like kicking butt with instantly. There's like a whole issue where she's learning to adapt to her new situation, and she's kind of losing her mind a little bit, just like struggling with like how, like her new kind of normal. I hate that term now, but it's a big adjustment for her, and it's her husband kind of showing up for her and trying to help her in that situation, so that when the action happens and when the bad guys show up, and there's real stakes because you care about these characters. To me, it's really important to really lay that groundwork. And that's one thing that's hard about writing comic books too, because say if you're writing a movie, you've got those first 15 minutes to kind of establish your world. Whereas in a comic book, you have to have action start hitting like pretty quickly, and you got to have like that kind of suspense so that people keep turning that page. So that first issue is really tricky to kind of juggle the balance of keeping the suspense and establishing characters at the same time, right? Because for me, I really want people to like my characters, so that when we get to the crazy stuff, you care.
Yeah, that's a good point. I have noticed in a lot of comics and manga that you need to get the audience invested in the characters' life, like characteristics, their personal trauma or their personal goals, like right away. Otherwise, you lose them. So that's something that you, as a writer, need to like always have in mind, I guess. So how do you, as a writer, how do you determine the tone? I mean, the tone of your story regarding like how dark it's going to be. Like there's always, like in manga, you have different genres, like something that's more of a kid story or a teenager story or an adult story or tragedy, comedy. Like how do you determine this?
Well, I try to write for just something that I would like to read. Basically, if I think it's going to be cool, then I feel like I'm on the right road, and then generally other people will agree with me. So try and make it so that it's something that you're going to like. If you were to remove yourself from the situation and you came into it, would you like this?
So you don't do this mechanically, like I want this to be specifically this genre. You just go with it, and you're like, I would personally enjoy if I was reading this or consuming this. Okay, that's good to know.
I think like for the quality, right? And I think the more personal you can make it, the better the story is, I think. So if you can really relate to it a lot, and really kind of pour your heart into it, then the writing's going to be better, right? And that's where, so with Resilient, I wanted to talk about these things, like couples struggling with fertility, with recovering from major injuries, but those aren't the type of stories or movies that I like to watch or read, right? I like to, I'm a a simple man. I like simple things. I like
Yeah.
kung fu movies, and I like action and comedy, and so the challenge for me was like, how do I talk about these things that I want to express and explore and put it into a subject matter that I like to consume, that's fun, that has car chases and just silliness and fights and kicks and punches and blood and guts and katanas and swords and all that sort of fun stuff. So it's a duality of kind of being true to yourself and writing about what you care about, but then also creating something that you would enjoy, that you think others will enjoy.
Awesome. So, do you plan like when you create like a story for a comic book? How often do you change your original like timeline or sketch? Do you like maybe suddenly realize that this part that's like a big reveal or something like that should go instead of at the end, at the beginning for shock value or something? When does this these big decisions when do they come into play?
I try and plan out early, but you also kind of keep in mind with your story, like you want to have page turn reveals, right? So there's like a bit of a cliffhanger or some suspense on the odd number pages, and then on the even number pages, when you turn that page, it's like, whoa, look at this. And so I always try and keep that like in mind, like, okay, page 6, page 8, page 10. There's got to be something cool to keep you turning the pages, and so you'll work your script like that too. So like when I was working on Hybrid Force with you, I noticed that like a lot of like my cool moments were happening on like odd number pages, and I was like, oh no, this is a problem. And so I don't know if you remember, I sent you like page 16.
Yes.
I'm like, okay, here's a new page that we need to add in. And it was just to kind of reformat the structure. So I created like a new page so that everything would fall in line and have like a better pacing to the book.
So yeah, the pacing is also planned. And this about the page number is so simple, and I have actually first time I've actually heard about this, and it's still brilliant because like yes, you imagine the physical comic and then you imagine it's like being flipped, but what about digital comics? How do you do it with that?
Yeah, no, that's true. That's different. I've heard actually creators complain about the digital comics because maybe an artist has drawn something to be small, to be like a quarter of the page, and then now it's like the whole size of your iPad, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't how I originally intended it. So for digital comics, I guess there's the whole page view, but on Comixology they zoom right in on the panels, which is nice for reading, but at the same time it kind of it takes a little bit of the planning of the comic. I still kind of write for physical comics, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, I'm used to making physical comics as well more, but like it's kind of inevitable that the web comics are conquering the market, and it's kind of requesting us both to be flexible and try to like like change the format of the way we think, I guess. So thank you so much for answering. Like I always wanted to know this stuff about the writing process, since it's something that's literally I'm trying to create my own comic books and like short comic books for my Patreon, and I get stuck because I'm like, oh, was this flow okay? Did I do this too fast or too slow? Like I still don't have that skill to just anticipate how my audience will react to actions being taken, like is it really like is it engaging or not, like it's an enigma to me because I'm used to getting like instructions from you like a writer and then just putting it on paper because you already got the pacing figured out, I guess.
Yeah, well, and so much is just kind of learning as you go, right? You try it, and then you look at it and you're like, okay, well, next time I'm gonna do things a little bit differently. But that's like that for me on my writing journey, so much of it was just deciding to do it, to really go for it. I know, like, you know, as well into my 30s before I decided to kind of start making comic books, and so much of my life was spent kind of being worried to, you know, take that first step and to put myself out there. And, you know, for myself, it's been nothing but great. You know, I was so worried about, you know, people judging me and, you know, and being rejected, and I found it
I always
super
find it so refreshing when people start something in their late 20s or 30s, because it shows that your life is just beginning and you finally figured out what you want to do. And I get a lot of students that are like already like done with college, maybe even have kids. I like one of my best students that had grandkids, and they just wanted to learn something new, do something new, do something they were fearing for so long. So it's so refreshing to know that you just started this, and you're doing so well. Actually, I just figure that there's so much stuff that you're already like showing your talents, but there we will get to see more of it in the future. And I wanted to just ask before we finish today's video, who were your greatest influences as a writer?
I really like Brian Michael Bendis, Marvel Comics, a DC Comics writer. I like in movies, I like Kevin Smith, Quentin Tarantino, Kevin Williamson, who did like the Scream movies, and he did the Dawson's Creek TV show, which I was like super into when I was in high school, which is pretty embarrassing. So yeah, those are some of my favorite. Right. Jeff Loeb is incredible. You know, the Long Halloween and how he writes for artists. Yeah, so there's lots of people that have influenced me, and yeah, I've been so lucky to work with some incredible artists like yourself, and yeah, and Vince Altabanis, who's the artist on Resilient, and you've done the cover for it that looks just incredible, and I really appreciate you coming out for me on that book. You know, this is my project right now. It's my first book released by a publisher, Absolute Comics, and it's on Kickstarter right now. It's in comic book stores through Previews Magazine. You can order it to come in for June 30th. Or I can't wait for Hybrid Force to be out. Hopefully, you know, 2022.
We'll make a video about it, definitely.
Yeah, that's in the future. But right now, for me, I've got my Resilient book.
I'll make sure to leave everything in the description. You guys can check it out. And thank you so much, George, for coming onto my channel. Please check out George's channel, Inside Comics, and just get like all the inside scoops about being a writer, a comic book creator, working with publishers, all that good stuff, because all of my audience is always interested how the comic book world and the manga world, which is also the comic book world, functions. So your channel will be so good to provide them with all of that knowledge from all the industry professionals.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here.